as astronomers continue their relentless observation of 3I Atlas. Something absolutely extraordinary has just been detected in the vicinity of this mysterious interstellar visitor. And I'm not talking about another tail or some unusual outgassing event. What we're talking about here is something that has never, and I mean never, been observed in our solar system before. Multiple observatories have now confirmed the presence of what appears to be a secondary object traveling in formation with 3I Atlas. Not debris, not a fragment that broke off, but a distinct, separate object maintaining a precise distance from the comet, moving in perfect synchronization with it as it makes its way toward Jupiter. The orbital mechanics of the secondary object don't make any sense whatsoever if we're dealing with a natural capture or a simple breakaway fragment. The object is maintaining what engineers would call a station-keeping position. It's holding position relative to 3I Atlas with precision that would make NASA's formation flying missions look crude by comparison. So what exactly are we looking at here? Is this definitive proof that 3I Atlas is indeed an artificial construct? We're going to dive deep into the data, examine every possible explanation, and try to figure out what the hell is going on out there near Jupiter. All of this and more coming at you on the Angry Astronaut right now. 1:30 to 3 o'clock, the Discovery. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to what might be the most important Angry Alien Bulletin I've ever produced. Because if what we're seeing is what some scientists are beginning to suspect, then we are looking at the first confirmed evidence of artificial structures operating in our solar system that were not built by human hands. So let's start with the basics. On January 9th, 2026, the European Southern Observatory's Very Large Telescope in Chile detected an anomalous radar return approximately 340 kilometers from a nucleus of 3I Atlas. The signal was confirmed 2 days later by both the Arecibo Successor radio telescope and the Deep Space Network's Goldstone facility. What they found was startling: an object roughly 47 meters in diameter, maintaining a fixed position relative to 3I Atlas's center of mass. But here's where it gets really interesting. This object is not in orbit around 3I Atlas. It's not following Kepler's laws. It's simply there, holding position. 3 to 4:30, why natural explanations fail. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, maybe 3I Atlas has enough mass to gravitationally bind this object. But let's do the math. 3I Atlas probably has a mass somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 to 50 billion tons. At a distance of 340 kilometers, the gravitational force would be absolutely minuscule. We're talking about micronewtons. There is simply no way that this object can maintain a stable, fixed position through gravitational forces alone. The tidal forces from the sun and Jupiter would rip it away within hours. So if gravity isn't keeping this thing in place, what is? Either this object has some form of active propulsion system that's constantly making tiny adjustments, or there's some kind of physical tether we can't detect. And before you dismiss the tether idea as too fantastical, let me remind you that the European Space Agency's Yes-2 experiment successfully deployed a 31-kilometer tether in space. So the concept itself isn't science fiction. But a tether stretching 340 kilometers? That would be unprecedented, even for us. What about magnetic fields? Could 3I Atlas be generating a powerful magnetic field that's levitating this object? The problem is, magnetic fields generated by comets are incredibly weak. We're talking nanoteslas. Nowhere near strong enough to levitate a 47-meter metallic object against the disturbing forces present in this environment. Could there be a Lagrange point-like stability zone we haven't accounted for? Well, the short answer is no. Lagrange points exist in 3 body systems where you have 2 massive objects and a third, much smaller object. 3I Atlas and this secondary object don't fit that description at all. Neither one is massive enough to create the kind of gravitational architecture necessary for Lagrange points to exist between them. So that's out. So natural explanations are looking pretty thin on the ground. When you eliminate the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth. We've eliminated most of the natural explanations. The gravitational forces don't work. The magnetic field hypothesis doesn't hold up. The idea that this is just a random chunk of debris is contradicted by the precision of its station keeping. So what's left? Either we're witnessing a natural phenomenon so rare that it's essentially unprecedented in all of human astronomical observation, or we're looking at technology. Let's talk about what this object actually looks like based on the radar data. And this is where things get even more bizarre. The radar cross-section suggests an object that is not spherical, not irregular like an asteroid, but rather geometric. The best fit to the data is something cylindrical or possibly tetrahedral. In other words, it has defined edges and surfaces. Now, could a natural object have geometric shapes? Sure, crystals form geometric patterns all the time, but we're not talking about a small crystal here. We're talking about a 47-meter structure maintaining a precise position relative to a comet in interstellar space. The odds of this being a naturally occurring geometric crystal that just happens to be traveling in formation with 3I Atlas are, well, let's just say I wouldn't bet my house on it. And here's the most intriguing part. The object appears to be rotating. Not tumbling chaotically like you'd expect from a piece of debris, but rotating at a constant rate of approximately 1 revolution every 4.7 hours. That's an incredibly stable rotation rate. And here's the kicker. The axis of rotation is perpendicular to the direction of travel. In other words, this object is spinning like a wheel with its axis pointing sideways relative to the trajectory of 3I Atlas. Why is that significant? Because that's exactly the orientation you would want if you were trying to generate artificial gravity through centripetal force. A rotating habitat, spinning at the right rate, could create Earth-like gravity on its inner surface. Now, I want to be clear. I'm not saying this is a rotating habitat. What I'm saying is that the rotation rate and axis orientation are consistent with that interpretation. But combined with everything else we're seeing, the precision station keeping, the geometric shape, the stable rotation, it's getting harder and harder to dismiss the artificial hypothesis out of hand. If this object is using electric propulsion or ion thrusters to maintain its position, we should be able to detect the exhaust plume. Ion engines produce a characteristic signature in the ultraviolet and visible spectrum. They glow, and yet none of the observatories watching this object have detected any such emissions. So either this thing is using a propulsion technology that doesn't produce detectable exhaust, or the exhaust is being directed in such a way that it's not visible from Earth. Both possibilities are, let's just say they're concerning. 6 to 730 possible purposes. So why would anyone, human or alien, build something like this? What could possibly be the purpose of placing a 47-meter object in formation with 3I Atlas? Well, there are actually several possibilities, and not all of them are sinister. The most benign explanation would be that this is an observation probe. Think of it as an interstellar camera drone, keeping pace with 3I Atlas to study it up close. If 3I Atlas is indeed an artificial construct, as some have speculated, then the secondary object could be a support craft, perhaps carrying out repairs, conducting scientific observations, or serving as a communications relay back to wherever 3I Atlas originated from. A more concerning possibility is that this could be some kind of defensive system. If 3I Atlas is carrying something valuable, or if its creators wanted to ensure it completed its journey undisturbed, they might have equipped it with Guardian satellites. These could be designed to detect and respond to threats, either natural like incoming asteroids or artificial like interceptor spacecraft. Now, before anyone panics, there's zero evidence that this object poses any threat to Earth or our spacecraft. It hasn't done anything aggressive. It's just there, watching, waiting. And then there's a possibility that has some people genuinely worried. What if the secondary object isn't traveling with 3I Atlas? What if it was deployed by 3I Atlas? Think about it. 3I Atlas passes through our solar system, gets a good look at the inner planets, collects data on Earth civilization, and then as it approaches Jupiter, it deploys the secondary craft with a specific mission, maybe to remain in the outer solar system as an observation post, maybe to study Jupiter and its moons, or maybe to alter course and head toward the inner solar system while 3I Atlas continues outbound. But a smaller craft? Something only 47 meters across? That would require far less energy to redirect. A few well-timed thruster burns, a close approach to Jupiter, and you could send this thing anywhere in the solar system you wanted. Now, I know some of you are going to say, this is all speculation. You're jumping to conclusions based on incomplete data. And you're absolutely right. I am speculating. But here's the thing. When you eliminate the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth. Let me address the elephant in the room. If this is technology and if it's not ours, then what does that mean for humanity? Well, it means a lot of things, actually. It means we're not alone in the universe, which frankly most people already suspected. It means that interstellar travel is possible, at least for objects the size of comets and smaller spacecraft. It means that there are civilizations out there with the engineering capability to send probes across the vast distances between stars. And it means that one of those probes has now entered our solar system and is potentially observing US. But here's what it doesn't necessarily mean. It doesn't mean we're about to be invaded. It doesn't mean that alien warships are going to suddenly appear over our cities. It doesn't mean the end of the world. If an alien civilization wanted to harm us, they've had plenty of opportunities. They could have sent kinetic impactors. They could have released bioweapons. They could have done any number of terrible things. The fact that they haven't suggests that either they don't wish us harm, or they're so advanced that we're simply not worth their attention as a threat. Either way, panicking doesn't help anyone. 8:30 to 9:30, ongoing observations. What we need right now is more data. And I'm happy to report that efforts are already underway to gather exactly that. NASA has announced that they're redirecting the Hubble Space Telescope to conduct long-duration observations of both 3I Atlas and the secondary object. The James Webb Space Telescope will be used to analyze the infrared signature, looking for heat emissions that might indicate active systems or power generation. And several ground-based observatories around the world are coordinating a continuous monitoring campaign to track both objects as they approach Jupiter. There's also been some discussion, and this is still very preliminary, about the possibility of sending an intercept mission. Could we actually launch a spacecraft to rendezvous with 3I Atlas and this mysterious companion before they leave the solar system? The answer is maybe. It would require a massive rocket, probably something like a Falcon Heavy or Starship, and it would need to launch very soon to have any chance of catching up. The trajectory would be brutal, requiring multiple gravity assists and carrying very little payload. But it could be done. Whether it should be done is another question entirely. In the meantime, amateur astronomers around the world are also contributing to the effort. If you have a decent telescope and the right equipment, you can participate in this historic observation campaign. The community has set up coordination networks to ensure continuous coverage of 3I Atlas and its companion. Every data point helps. 9:30 to 10 o'clock. Closing. So where does this leave us? We have confirmed the existence of a secondary object traveling in precise formation with 3I Atlas. We've ruled out most natural explanations for how this is possible. We've identified characteristics, geometric shape, stable rotation, perfect station keeping, that are consistent with an artificial construct. And we're now in a position where we need to seriously consider the possibility that we're looking at extraterrestrial technology operating in our solar system. Does this prove that 3I Atlas is an alien spacecraft? No, but it sure as hell raises the probability significantly. The next few weeks are going to be absolutely critical. As 3I Atlas approaches its closest point to Jupiter, the secondary object will either continue to maintain its position, revealing even more clearly that it's under active control, or it might do something else entirely that definitively proves its artificial nature. But I'll tell you what I think. I think we're looking at technology. I think that object out there is a machine built by someone for a specific purpose. And I think that purpose involves studying our solar system and possibly studying us. Am I certain? No. Can I prove it? Not yet. But sometimes you just know in your gut when something is genuinely extraordinary. And this, my friends, is extraordinary. Thank you very much for watching. This is a developing story, and you can bet I'll be covering every new development as it happens. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, because we're living through history right now. The merch store is still open, by the way. We've got 3I Atlas gear, and I'm working on adding designs related to this new discovery as well. If you'd like to support this channel and help keep this kind of in-depth analysis coming, please consider joining us on Patreon or supporting through Cash App. Thanks again for watching, and remember, keep your eyes on the skies, because apparently something up there is keeping its eyes on us. Until next time, stay angry about space.